if I listen to like Tesla Battery Day, they spend a lot of time talking about, not moving lithium molecules all around the world and then, digging them out of holes and putting them back into holes. All that kind of big analogy to say mining's horribly inefficient. Glencore, track record of owning various refineries around the world and shipping stuff left, right, and center. Is that kind of like new thinking, that new economics important to you? In terms of you setting up an operation, do you feel that or do you think mining's mining and it doesn't change for 100 years?
Mining will need to change, but I can use a very topical recent example. So we undertook a scoping study to build a cobalt refinery in the United States. I knew the answer to that before we even started. I knew it was going to be uneconomic. The reason I wanted that study is because I'm sitting here in Washington and I want to be able to demonstrate and to have sensible conversations with policymakers that, we're not in the business of wasting Jervois money, but why I think we've got credibility here in DC is we also don't like wasting taxpayers' money. So if something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to ask the government to fund something that doesn't make sense. So the scoping study for a 2,500 ton cobalt refinery in Idaho came out at just shy of $200 million US. Now we're purchasing a 2,000 ton cobalt refinery in Brazil that's got a 25,000 ton nickel refinery kind of with it for a 20 million, 22.5 on current FX. So the economics of that are pretty clear. Cobalt's a higher value product. Cobalt and nickel are higher value products. If you're shipping ore, we're taking a high value product and it travels. It doesn't travel indefinitely. But again, if you look at if we cast our mind back to the nickel pig iron industry in China, for example, back before they induced the facilities to be constructed in Indonesia, all of that ore was getting shipped to China. And nickel ore, if you put it, nickel ore was 2% nickel best. So that was economic. The Chinese were making money. They didn't build ferronickel facilities in Indonesia because they weren't making money. They built ferronickel facilities in Indo because the government said, we're not going to let you export ore. So if you put that in, I'm using a couple of figures, but say if your long-term cobalt price is 5 times what your long-term nickel price is, that 2% ore is the equivalent of a 0.4% cobalt ore. So in terms of economics, the concentrate that we moved from Idaho to Brazil, it's 10%. So it's like you're moving something that inherently is 10 to 15 times as valuable on a weight basis. So the economics make sense. And it's about securing supply chains as well. So, we're taking something from Idaho, we're taking it down to Brazil, we land at Santos Port. And again, I don't want to tell people and pretend it's not in Brazil, but I lived in Brazil for 5 years and I can tell you there's a massive difference between landing a product at Santos Port in the state of Sao Paulo, which has a population of 40 million people and a GDP only behind Mexico in terms of Latin America's scale, driving 100 kilometres a truck along a divided highway to a plant which is in Sao Paulo City that's 5 kilometres from Guarulhos, must be the busiest international airport in Latin America, driving it back to Santos Port and re-exporting the product. Still Brazil, but if it's different. We're not going into Paris State, we're not going into Tocantins, we're not going into Amazonas. You don't have all those kind of issues that you have in different other parts of Brazil. And we control that. So that's very important. I'm hopeful. When I'm talking with politicians here in DC and also Idaho, because obviously the Idaho delegation, they would love a US refinery and they'd love it to be in their state. I get that. But ultimately, to build and why I say I knew the study was going to be uneconomic, 2,000 ton cobalt refineries, it's not competitive, yeah? If you look at the facilities that we've been involved with previously, Nickelverk, 5,000. Murrin would have been the smallest, and that was 3.5. But obviously attached to a 40,000 ton nickel refinery, you need scale. You got to have something. There's no point building a facility that's not competitive, that's just going to come cyclically in and out of the market and result in instability, social instability in the area that operates.
Right. So S&P sounds cheap. Sounds like the right move strategically for you guys. You're going to have to. When does that actually complete and close?
Well, the contract's concluded. So the structure is, it's a tiered entry. So we pay a deposit, 15 million reais, which is, I mean, we put in current exchange rates just to be, for those that aren't. So about 2.7 US we pay by the end of the year.
Right.
We then have a period up until September where we undertake a feasibility study, talk to third-party suppliers, define the business plan. And then if we choose to close, which is obviously our strong expectation, then we pay the remainder based on a number of tranches on production and closing up until June 2023.